labelless. In order to be limitless, at least limitless in a kind of generative, creative way, rather than the seemingly limitless destruction us humans have shown ourselves capable of, I believe we need to be labelless. Why do we label ourselves and each other? Are we suffering from some kind of collective obsessive-compulsive disorder where we fantasize that the world is one big, giant filing cabinet? How can a human being fit into a filing cabinet? What if we could just appreciate the messy mystery, unknowableness of life? Theoretical physicist and author Stephen Hawking said in an interview, "While physics and mathematics may tell us how the universe began, they are not much use in predicting human behavior because there are far too many equations to solve." What is the deal with this need to categorize? This you, me, us, them, right, wrong, good, bad, American, Iranian, German, Greek, Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, Muslim, Sikh, male, female, gay, straight. I thought we did away with that, separate but equal stuff back in the 60s. But what if there's no separate? My dog's name is Yatahe. A friend found him on a Navajo reservation when he was a puppy, and Yate is Yate is a Navajo greeting like aloha or shalom or salam. It means hello and goodbye, because there is no hello and there is no goodbye. Quantum physics is proving more conclusively every day what spiritual, mystical, and metaphysical traditions have been saying for millennia, that everyone and everything is connected. The chaos theory, or the butterfly effect, tells us that a hurricane's formation might be contingent on whether or not a distant butterfly flapped its wings several weeks prior. Quantum physics tells us that we are passing atoms back and forth between each other and our environment every moment of every day. Schrodinger's cat taught us that the thinking of the observer will affect the outcome of the experiment. Our labels and assumptions are not some neutral, objective, empirical interpretation of the data. Our labels and expectations create our reality. When I was a kid, I watched Star Trek reruns practically every day after school. And the most poignant Star Trek episode for me, the one that stuck out in my memory, was the two-part episode, The Menagerie, where Spock hijacked the Enterprise to take his friend Captain Pike back to Talos 4. Spock's very rational Vulcan reason for his act of mutiny was that the Talosians had an ability to create illusion with their thoughts, which would give Captain Pike the chance at a normal life after the accident that left him severely burned and paralyzed. Throughout the episode, our assumptions and expectations and labels are turned on their heads. Captain Kirk and Bones thought that Spock, a Vulcan, was incapable of mutiny. Starfleet strictly forbid any travel to Talos 4 because they believed the Talosians to be bad guys who were trying to enslave humans. The Talosians expected the humans to want to live in a paradise created in the mind, since they had destroyed their planet with their technology and thinking generations prior. I think the reason I remember that episode more than any other is because I was so moved by Spock's heroic and illogical act of compassion. The episode asks us, what is reality? What is illusion? What is right? What is sustainable? John Lennon said it all in Imagine. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. What if there is no naughty and there is no nice? What if we don't know? What if we can't know? What if there were no shame or blame or guilt? What if every being on this planet was 100% responsible and accountable for their every thought, feeling, and action right here and right now? A couple of years ago, I learned about a Hawaiian healing technique called Ho'oponopono when I read a book called Zero Limits. On the Zero Limits website, it says, Ho'oponopono is a profound gift which allows one to develop a working relationship with the divinity within and learn to ask that in each moment our errors in thought, word, deed, or action be cleansed. The process is essentially about freedom, complete freedom from the past. I learned this technique around the time that the oil spill was happening in the Gulf of Mexico, when the rig disintegrated and they couldn't cap the well for months, while hundreds of millions of gallons of oil poured into the Gulf. And I found that a little upsetting. Part of my upset was that there was nothing that I could do about it, and part of my upset was my judgments against the people responsible for the disaster. And I knew that my upset was not helping anything, and it was making me and everyone around me miserable. So I practiced this technique often during that time. The way I apply it is that whenever I become aware of anything that is bothering me or upsetting me, I take full responsibility for it. Because the philosophy is that there's no separation, and if it's in my conscious awareness, then it is in me. And in the act of taking full responsibility, I'm suddenly no longer a victim. It's not about blame or guilt, just responsibility. I know I'm not BP and that others may have more individual responsibility for the catastrophe, but I drive a car and use plastic stuff, and I'm a member of the human race. So once I take responsibility for the thing that is upsetting me, I repeat the following phrases in order to cleanse and clear the energy. The 4 phrases are, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And I do this over and over until the upset dissipates as I forgive myself for buying into the illusion of separateness and the illusion of moral superiority. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion, too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. What if there was no hierarchy? What if there was no competition? What if there were no winners or losers? What if either we all win or we all lose? Cultural historian and evolutionary theorist Diane Eisler coined the term dominator paradigm to describe the system that most of our thinking and beliefs are rooted in. In her book, The Real Wealth of Nations, she points out the insanity of measuring our GDP with profits from war and violence and fossil fuels and all kinds of unsustainable practices, while not measuring the value of non-monetized work like parenting or caring for an ailing loved one or volunteering. In her writing and activism, she proposes the partnership model as an alternative paradigm to live and create from. What are the unexamined biases and assumptions we all have that create our labels, and where do they come from? Some of my friends are Republicans, and I think we all basically want the same things. Maybe our bullshit detectors are calibrated differently, so we look to different people or policies to facilitate these things. But we all want love, peace, health, education, freedom, some sense of security and respect. What if we realized we are all on the same team? what could we accomplish if we worked together towards our common goals? Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. When I arrived in Sacramento a couple of days before this event, I lost my iPhone. I had been texting with Chris, the organizer of this TEDx event, who had generously and graciously offered to pick me up from the airport in the middle of all the other last-minute details that she needed to attend to. So as Chris was circling the airport, waiting for me to get my luggage, we were texting each other with our coordinates. And when I had my luggage, I walked outside and sat down on a bench and put my iPhone down on the bench because I'd never met her and I didn't want to miss her text if she pulled up and was looking for me. But I knew it was her when I saw her and jumped up and got all my stuff and myself into the car. And about an hour later, I noticed that I couldn't find my phone. So Chris offered to check Lost and Found at the airport when she went back that evening to pick up her sister. And she did. And it was there. Somebody made the effort, probably after a long journey, to turn the phone in. And nobody stole it. And security didn't destroy it, thinking that it might be a bomb. It was a miracle. But in the time between when Chris left to go to the airport and when she called my hotel room to let me know that she had my phone, I kind of lost it. Not just my phone, I lost it. I'm not proud of myself. I just felt totally disconnected. Even though there was a phone in my room and 2 computers in the business center, I felt completely disconnected from the world. And when Chris brought my phone to me, it was like a pacifier to a baby. I'd only had this smartphone for a couple of weeks. I'd resisted joining the smartphone users of the world up to that point. But once I took the plunge, I was in the deep end, dependent. I am old enough to have survived several decades of existence without the assistance of mobile devices. I'm aware that there are still many people in the world who are surviving and even thriving without mobile devices, let alone landlines and computers. But I have clearly bought into the illusion of separation. And that whole experience started me thinking, what if we had a major solar flare and huge areas were without electricity? Just a couple of weeks ago, over 500 million people were without electricity in India when they had that power outage. What would we all do without our mobile phones and GPSs? We wouldn't be able to get cash from the ATM or buy gas. How would we get to the store to buy food if the stores would even be open? How would we stay cool or warm? How would that you, me, us, them competitive illusion of separation work for us then? I was in New York City a couple of weeks after 9/11, and like many people, I experienced a softer side of the population at that time. People looked one another in the eye and said hello and held the door for one another. I was there for an independent film market with an Iranian-American film that I acted in, and at the end of the screening, the room was absolutely silent. People's hearts were open. We wanted healing, not aggression and revenge. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. Einstein said we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.